This fella Ronaldo is a cod.
Arsene Wenger's been in Japan for a year. He doesn't know anything about English football.
I will love it if we beat them.
This is football heritage.
Con Giovanni, incredible. Dribble.
If you don't know the answer to that question, then I think you are an ostrich.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Once one of the great sporting rivalries, now Manchester United and Arsenal have been tossed aside for a Monday night football match on a week with European football action to look forward to. Hello and welcome to the Total Football Podcast. I'm your host, Declan Arnott, and joining me is Andrew Conway.
Hello.
Andrew, will we ever see a rivalry quite like the one shared between these two teams 15 to 20 years ago?
It is unlikely because of the way that naturally grew up in without any political ramifications like the Classico or sectarian stuff, the way there is in Celtic versus Rangers, or kind of even spatial, the way there normally is between like River Plate and Boca, or the North London derby, which we talked about a few weeks ago. But in fairness to this Manchester United-Arsenal rivalry, which goes back to the 78 FA Cup final, or is it 79? The one that United had lost.
Yeah, it was around that
came back. Or it's the Battle of Old Trafford, as it was in 1991, where there was a fight on the pitch between Arsenal United and Arsenal. They're the ones who got deducted points and still went on and won the league. It's a long-standing rivalry that grew up itself. But in fairness to it, the Liverpool Man United derby has been on a Monday night loads of times over the years.
It's more it's not necessarily that it's on a Monday night. It's that it's on Monday night when there's Champions League Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the two teams have to play Europa League on Thursday. And
it's more of a fall from grace for the two teams that they have to play on a Monday when there's Champions League football, meaning they're neither of which are in
this is normally when they put on West Ham or someone on TV. And
West Ham Everton match.
That's a peak Monday night football this period.
Yeah. Middlesbrough back in the day. Middlesbrough always there.
Crystal Palace Newcastle is the kind of match I'd put, or Bournemouth Newcastle.
Such a horrible trip for both fans.
Yeah. Well, London to Manchester is going to be fun for either. But I suppose that's another side of the whole Monday night football.
We'll see where I forget who are either team away on the week on Thursday evening. But
Man United are, but they're at home, which is assume why they've scheduled it. This way.
It's probably something like that.
But we have the rivalry now between Man City and Liverpool.
It's not the same.
It's really not.
No, because you need challengers. You need both teams to have actually won things, which Liverpool, I know they've won the Champions League, but they haven't won in the competitions. They haven't won directly over the other opponent. Liverpool did 2 years ago, but they ended up losing that Champions League final. So Arsenal did win a couple of leagues in that rivalry.
There isn't that bitterness between the two managers.
There isn't Vieira versus or
pettiness.
I watched the great the 0-0 between Manchester United and Arsenal from 2003-04 season, the one that could have ended the unbeaten season in.
Oh, and Van Nistelrooy missed the
penalty.
Van
Nistelrooy missed the penalty, and I watched that match back, and there was Vieira got sent off for. I think
an innocuous enough challenge.
No, well, he basically got flattened in a challenge for, I think Van Nistelrooy knocked him over or something, and then Vieira for some bizarre reason kicked out of him in a way. Do you remember David Beckham was sent off for putting the foot out for Diego Simeone?
Yeah.
Well, this is a proper stamp out on Vieira while he was on the ground, and if he had made contact, probably would have knocked him into next Tuesday. But Van Nistelrooy got out of the way, but made it look like he was getting out of he'd made contact with his abdomen, and he was like, "Oh, look, I've been hit," and the referee's angle was perfect to see that. So Van Nistelrooy got him sent off, and there was a lot of anger. But now, any of that stuff now, there was immediately there was Arsenal players grabbing Van Nistelrooy, throwing him to the ground. Vieira grabbed him by the neck. Roy Keane coming over to soothe things by getting in the way. Quinton Fortune being there for some bizarre reason. And trying to start up a fight with 3 or 4 different Arsenal players at the same time. Everyone in the thing arguing with each other. There was proper heat in that. And that was near the cooling off period where Manchester United were on their way down. And from that, that team was breaking apart. Beckham was gone. Van Nistelrooy was on the downward trend at that point. Keane was on the way out. The great old Manchester United team of the late 90s was
very much
apart.
in transition.
It was, yeah. And that was obviously the unbeatable Arsenal. They weren't on the same level, but even then there was a lot of hatred between the two teams.
And that was even before the Pizzagate happened then.
Yeah, that was several years later.
That was a couple of years later, I think 2006, I think.
Cesc Fabregas was on the scene at that point.
Yeah, throwing a pizza to Alex Ferguson.
But
you wouldn't get that with Liverpool or any other the rivalry.
No, they're too happy-go-lucky about each other. Like but the great thing about that rivalry is there was hatred, but it was all on the pitch. It was all football. There was a contrasting style, like Arsenal. I watched back a few games from that time. Arsenal were fantastic. They were the neutrals' favourite at that point for the ferocity and sheer entertainment of their football. But Manchester United were like, they weren't a bad team to watch, but they were one of the most efficient teams you'll ever watch play football. It was almost as if no pass happened without a reason behind it. They were so economical with the ball. They were so well drilled to get the ball that wide, get on the edge of the box, score a goal, done, do it again. They're like, every attack had a purpose. And that contrast in style just doesn't exist now. You just have very monotonous teams where, okay, we're going to counter-press you and you're going to counter-press us, and then when we have the ball, we're going to pass the ball around a lot. It's something I want to talk about because we're losing that contrast in football. I want to talk about it with the reference to the Sheffield United match in a bit. But yeah, that rivalry was something else. Unfortunately, I think it's dead at this point, though.
The Man United Arsenal, because at the moment both teams just seem meek and limp and like they're not really going anywhere. Like there's a bit more optimism around Arsenal at the moment, but like even looking at the pure league performances at Old Trafford, they haven't won there since 2006. Even when Man United have been dire at times, like it's gotten a bit embarrassing at times. And then at the other end, like Man United have gone to the Emirates and been embarrassed as well. Like Louis van Gaal had that 3-0 defeat, which could have easily been more. Yeah. Arsenal kind of took the foot off the gas after 20 minutes when they realised it was over. Like the teams have never really been at that same, even just that level below where they were equal, but like third and fourth. It was like they both just fell off a cliff at slightly different times, and it's led to this kind of like the build up to this game has been build up of longing for the past and also kind of laughing at the present of like, oh, look at these two teams.
They're so far away from where they once were challenging at the top of the league that the matches in 1999 when Manchester United won the treble.
Like there's so many iconic moments between the two of them in that like just 10-year period there of like 97.
Not even 10 year, like between 97 to
2004.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Period.
Or 05 would be the John O'Shea scoring an amazing goal.
Effectively ending the rivalry as it was.
Yeah, and like giving Chelsea the league title that season.
Yeah, I just love John O'Shea. Oh,
John
what a
O'Shea,
moment.
what a player. But anyway, that match is already happened by the time you're listening to this.
Yeah, which is why we're kind of putting it at the front of the show.
Mason Greenwood, though, what a debut / terrible debut.
Yeah, two goals and an assist or something.
Taken off after 10 minutes.
Or he's been sent off or gotten injured or something. But you talk about Liverpool against Sheffield United. What point were you going to bring up there?
Well, it was back to like kind of when you had mano-a-mano teams going against each other like Manchester United and Arsenal when they were at their peak under Ferguson and Wenger in the early to mid 2000s. It's a very cliche thing. You don't see matches like that anymore. And I know in some regards the matches were a lot more secured now. Teams do not leave themselves as open to attacks as they did necessarily in those years. But Sheffield United have a different way of playing football, which did seem to it made Liverpool think to an extent because they do have these kind of overlapping centre backs.
Yeah, centre backs. It is a unique system.
Yeah, it got a few attacks in the match where you see like centre backs or defensive midfielders in positions where you wouldn't normally, like in the edge of the box, running in, attacking. The wings being the extra man for the outpass on the right or left hand side, and the end of Stevens being everywhere on the pitch and simultaneously at once. But so I think it did make Liverpool think, but it reversed back into the old, okay, we're better than you, so you can play whatever way you want to play. We're still going to be better individual players, and I thought that's what happened in the Liverpool matches. Whenever Sheffield United couldn't get the ball back, so they couldn't really enact their game plan. And without the ball, having overlapping centre-backs is completely... It doesn't help you in any way at all. So it was everyone behind the ball, let's have a couple of quick outballs out the wing and hope for the best. And very seldom did they even get out of their own half if they got the ball. It was pressurised football, and Liverpool weren't even at their best. They weren't playing a hugely pressing game, which I think if they were, they would have got a lot more joy out of the Sheffield United defence. It's kind of like, it's an interesting system, but I don't know if Sheffield United are the team to bring it on. They individually aren't good enough to kind of win the ball back and then hold on to it for long periods of time and allow the system to develop. Maybe against championship sides there, but certainly in the Premier League and certainly against the top teams.
Yeah, against the top teams, yeah. That wealth gap really just starts to show between the two sides. And like Liverpool aren't even the top in terms of wealth, pure wealth there. So Sheffield United really up against it in that sense.
Yeah, but they weren't good enough. Like,
I think though, like having only seen a bit of Sheffield United, I think that they've shown enough that they can get 17th, even if it has to come to 17th.
I don't.
When you look at the fact that Watford and Newcastle are as bad as they are, like we're only really
Watford have better individual players, like we talked about Pereira.
But I think in this league season, individual players will not be enough. I think if I don't know when Sheffield United do play Watford, but in that seems like the kind of match where the overall system will be enough to just completely dismantle the individual of Watford.
I don't know, because like Liverpool, like Jordan Henderson ran rings around a lot of those players.
But Liverpool have that system, like that is Klopp saying. Like, you know, Liverpool have a very limited midfield in Jordan Henderson, James Milner, and Gini Wijnaldum, who ended up scoring. To be fair,
yeah, well, it was a very Taibbi goal.
I don't think I actually saw the goal.
It was Taibbi. Weak shot.
Oh wait, yeah, I did see it. Yeah.
Weak shot at Henderson, the keeper, future England keeper, as he apparently has told people.
On loan from United as well.
Yeah, and what you call it, his manager. Did you see his manager tore him apart?
Yeah, Chris Wilder seems like that kind of guy. Though,
like, do you think this guy? He thinks he's going to be a future Manchester United goalkeeper? like. My God, like you don't. He had a good game apart from that. Like he did well. Like Liverpool tore. It was really just bad finishing from Mane.
Yeah.
A couple of poor decision making. You know, Firmino made a couple of poor decisions where he could have shot or passed to a different player. Like Liverpool should have, even poorly playing Liverpool, which they were, tough match away from home for them, against a system they were not used to, and they still should have torn them apart. And it makes me worry that, you know, they've had their good fortune already, Sheffield United. That's what I worry about. They played well against a couple of teams. They did well against Chelsea coming back, but you know, this Chelsea team's a bit weaker underbelly, as we've seen before. But against better sides and against teams, once they get this is the thing. It's the 1961. It's the 1960 Ipswich or 1961 Spurs situation where both teams played a completely different types of systems those seasons. The Bill Nicholson Spurs team, famous. They should have won 4 back-to-back league titles, only won 1. And it won a double at the time, which was unheard of at the time. And Ipswich under Alf Ramsey, they played a different style of football where they had the wingless wonders, or they kind of had a much more creative style. They inverted the traditional system of playing football, so no one knew who to mark, no one knew who was coming from where. And in that day and age, there was no television. There was only match reports. There was no, you know, not much radio coverage. Even.
Match of the day was just getting started.
Yeah, it didn't really exist at the time. And you had, you know, you didn't have a lot of tactical analysis. So these teams would rock up and no one know how to play against them. Unfortunately for Sheffield United, that doesn't exist anymore. So, like, I think as the season goes on, you're going to find, okay, the way to get at this Sheffield United team, don't let them have the ball, or if they have the ball, let them have it in defence, and they can't get the ball out to their midfielders. They can't start those runs from the back, from deep, and they don't have the firepower up front to actually cause any problems.
Yeah, and like obviously as well, at the time the gap between first and last wouldn't have been quite the same in a wealth sense as well.
Well, the
technology
team could come from nowhere and just win
as we saw with Brian Clough even in the 70s, late as the 70s. Yeah. But I still think Sheffield United can show enough this year.
Yeah,
I think obviously, you know, they did lose, but criticising them against Liverpool, who have won 7 games in a row to start the season, which they've only done once before in 1990. So in first division history, even you know, they're clearly a special side. So it's a bit harsh to, but I get the point you're making.
They've been it's a spotlight on them now because they are playing the best league leaders, the champions of Europe. And that spotlight, I think, brings more problems for them because suddenly you have a clear game plan to play against them that maybe Chelsea didn't have when they got their draw earlier in the season, and maybe a few of the other teams around them. You know, it's a case, like you make a point, maybe Watford don't have the capabilities to actually do what Liverpool did, and that's fair enough that maybe they don't. But there's a lot of teams in that mid area that may well do, like West Ham I'm thinking of here, Everton even I'm thinking of here.
Well, speaking of Everton, they lost 3-1 to Man City, but it wasn't one of Man City's usual kind of 3-1 wins. Speaking
of goalkeepers, like Jordan Pickford, another...
Yeah, very poor.
I saw a lot of criticism of him talking, it's a classic English goalkeeper, talks a lot and then makes howlers.
He does have a bit of the Joe Harts about him.
Yeah, it's a bit worried because he was young. I thought that would be kind of... I'm still hopeful for the guy because... I think he's a good shot stopper. His distribution is excellent, especially for an English goalkeeper.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And as we've seen for England as well.
Exactly. But yeah, I do worry about him. He is always a bit on the lighter side in terms of his goalkeeping physique. And I always thought he kind of had the agility to overcome it. But then that Mahrez goal in particular, a free kick,
soft.
It was like... get a hand to it, at least make an effort towards it, and he kind of it wasn't hit at an amazing pace, so it's not like he couldn't get in the way of it. And his decision making has been poor in recent weeks.
We saw it against Bournemouth as well, even.
Like, is it a case that he's not confident in defence? But it's very easy to blame a goal. Peter Schmeichel always used to say that, like, if a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's back page news. Like, it's the main story in the back page. If a centre back makes a mistake, it's forgotten about the following week.
And if a team gets a clean sheet, it's the defence usually.
It's the defence, or the manager. It's never the goalkeeper unless something has gone wrong.
Unless a David De Gea against Arsenal type performance happens,
Yes.
where he makes them like 14 saves.
Yeah, so those do happen, but very rarely. And with Pickford, maybe it's a case that this defence is leaking goals everywhere. Like,
I think they haven't kept a clean sheet for a while, but it feels like they're not keeping any.
But like everyone, like Yaramina, who I know a lot of people don't rate, I think for what he is as a footballer, he is designed to get the ball away, clear it away, stop attacks happening before they happen. That's his job. Michael Keane, Seamus Coleman, and who's playing the Barcelona fella?
Lucas Digne.
Like, all of those players have been acclaimed as, like, individually they're fantastic in their positions. Like, they're, as I say, Yaramina does his job. Michael Keane, future long-term England international player. Lucas Digne, Barcelona product, fantastic player, great on the attack. But together they do not form a cohesive unit, I don't think. And especially with Pickford behind them, maybe he's losing confidence in them. He starts losing confidence. He starts making mistakes. The pressure lumps on him, not at the defence. Defence has kind of got to get out of jail free with Seamus Coleman getting that goal. There's like, you can forget.
Such a good goal as
well.
But
like, where did the goals come from in that Man City match? They were the carbon copy of Man City's standard goal. Get the ball out wide, cross it in, tap it in.
Yeah, Kevin De Bruyne with the assist for the first goal.
Sterling was it Sterling that had a very similar, or Aguero had a very I think both players had very similar chances.
Yeah.
Get the ball out wide, cross it in, and like, you're looking at your fullbacks here, you're looking at Lucas Digne, it was Lucas Digne I think on both occasions. You're looking at your centre halves, like, this ball is coming. You intercept it. It's not like we're doing an Arjen Robben type of thing where he's cutting in every single time.
Yeah.
If you put two players on him, you're fine. This is a case of just keep your positioning and you'll be fine. And maybe, I think the coaching maybe is more to do with that, and we can talk with Marco Silva more if you want. But
I think a longer discussion of Silva's
like,
down the line.
Everton is a bit of a bottleneck of a club. They know their ceiling. Unfortunately, I think they've bought well in recent years. They haven't bought that badly since they've lost Lukaku. It's taken a while to come around. But they seem to have their house in order with Moise Keane, if that's what we're calling him.
Yeah, he just hasn't been playing.
Iwobi, a good signing. Like, these are good international players.
I felt kind of bad for Iwobi because Theo Walcott went off injured after like 5-10 minutes.
Hit by the ball.
Yeah, he went off. And did he go off on the stretcher? Actually,
Yeah.
Must have been pretty bad. And then Iwobi came on for him, and then Iwobi was hooked then for Keane after an hour. It's like, that's always That's always
like
rough.
Idrissa. Like, clearly they've done well. Idrissa Gueye, their PSG are 100% record when he's on the field and conceded 0 goals.
Yeah, he had to concede. Yeah.
Like, that's an amazing record. Like, obviously they had made good signings. They haven't filled in those gaps that like a Gueye has left in midfield. But like, I don't know. I'm looking at Marco Silva there. I said, like, I think they've got their kind of director of footballing or house in order. They have players there.
They're looking at that new stadium.
Yeah, it's like, why not? Like, Ronald Koeman, I know, like, he probably would have been a better architect keeping this as a head coach type of role, seeing how well he's done in the Netherlands and bringing players through like that, and having him previously at the club. You're like, look, Marco Silva, he's a results-driven manager. He always was in Portugal. Is he the type of guy you want to try and like finish? Like, this goes back to, I think we've said it many times before. Do you want your manager to get the results for you, if that result means you're going to finish in 9th or 8th place? Or do you want the manager to bring through young players, play exciting football, do good things, not make stupid mistakes? Everyone can enjoy the game, everyone can enjoy the football, a la Leicester City at the moment, a la, give me another club.
Even West Ham, I'd say.
To a lesser extent, West Ham.
Bournemouth,
perhaps. You know your ceiling, you know where you're going to finish, but at least, or Southampton, but at least you can have fun along the way. I don't think Marco Silva is the manager to deliver that.
But then with Man City, there was the whole stuff with Bernardo Silva over the last week or so, and it just like
Pep making it worse.
Pep really making it worse. Like, the club really
Raheem Sterling on the same page with them.
I kind of felt bad for Raheem Sterling because it felt like he was just shoved out there, make the club sound good kind of thing.
You've talked about racism before. You're a black player, you can do it.
Yeah, that felt a bit disingenuous, that whole part. Like, so I felt bad for him there. like
he's trapped there. He can't go against his employers.
Exactly, like he's in a really
if he feels that way. Maybe he doesn't feel that. Maybe he's being completely genuine.
But
and
it does feel like he's stuck in between a rock and a hard place kind of situation. And then like there's the whole resurfacing of the footage of Bernardo Silva talking about Mendy wearing a black top and it's like, oh look, you're naked and stuff like that, and it just reflects poorly. And then Pep using stuff like, oh, he speaks 4 to 5 languages.
Yeah, he's a great character.
He's a smart
he's
guy.
A family. Yeah.
Implying that like smart people can't be racist and stuff like that, or say racist things and stuff like that. And it comes off poorly, and especially because it was 7 years ago since the whole Luis Suarez affair and Liverpool and their poor handling of that you would think that every Premier League team should have learned from that, and to just, when an incident like this does happen, that they accept fault, they kind of look for forgiveness and stuff, and they try to move on. But like then them wearing kick it out t-shirts before the Everton match when they were doing their warm-ups on the pitch, again the whole thing just felt disingenuous.
Yeah, I remember that happened before, and some player refused. It wasn't Rio Ferdinand, but it was some other player of that stature.
Would that have been around the John Terry incident?
It was a while ago anyway, and they was same type of thing as, get the kick it out jerseys on before in the pre-match thing. And one player made a point of like not wearing it because like why would I wear it now and we didn't wear it the other, like it's not. And John Barnes has talked very eloquently about it, and maybe he's kind of in a very pessimistic mode because he's lived with it so long for most of his life that he believes that football exists or racism exists in football. You can't get rid of it. It's a societal problem. You have to tackle it at societal level before you can ever get rid of it out of football. And he has a point there. He's lived it. He knows it.
But again, his attitude is just very defeatist as well, in a way of like, and some of it comes off of like, well, I dealt with racism, so you have to deal with racism.
Yeah, it kind of. Well, I don't want to brush him with that, but yeah, it's not an easy thing to. It's not a thing that's you're going to wear a kick it out or a pin and it's all done and you'll shake hands like Patrice Evra shaking hands with Luis Suarez was never going to fix the situation.
Yeah,
and it certainly didn't make it any better.
That was a mess.
It certainly wasn't going to fix the situation. And like there's a lot of factors at play here. Obviously, first and foremost, if it's like a racially insensitive photo to post, a stupid thing to post when you consider. Like the guy had just scored a hat trick and that's nothing to do with anything. But like, why was that the first thing you did? Like, why
on
you
such
have
a public platform?
You have to tackle the mindset of like the first thing you do is post a photo like this after a match. It's like about a player who's been injured for so long and you know he's a good friend of yours and he's just come back from injury and you kind of post a ridiculing photo, regardless of what it was compared to, and then you actually bring in the caricature that it was and what that means and the kind of the baggage that contains with it, and you're like, oh, this does not look good for anyone involved. And then Mendy's forced to come out and like defend it, whether he. Like, probably does. He seems like a happy-go-lucky guy. He probably did see the light of it, but again, it's in a public platform, as you said, and no one wants that. And then you have the all-associated thing of the cultural differences. And I think I don't know if we spoke about this publicly, but like this stuff, unfortunately, is happening all the time in Spain and Italy, and to a lesser extent in Portugal.
Italy, especially, like with the whole stuff with Lukaku a few weeks ago.
Far worse, but like not to. We don't need more of the equivalence there, and all of it's bad, but. If this has happened on Twitter with I don't know who, I don't want to name any players, but say, was it Bonucci last season who took as much blame for the racist abuse?
He said that Moise Kean was as much at fault as the actual racist chanting people were.
And that kind of has gone by the wayside since. It's kind of been brushed under the carpet. This sort of stuff happens in the cultures where Bernardo Silva and Pep Guardiola are coming from. It's not the norm there, but it's a lived with thing. It's something that people live with, that they're not comfortable.
So you think they'd have a bit more cop on?
But this is the thing. They don't have cop on. They live with it and they think it's a normal part of life. And these are like, countries who've had recent problems with racist abuse and racist incidents and stuff like that. You think they would be a bit more on it, but they're not. And like the fact that brand in the Congolese. Candy or sweets, whatever you want to call it, brand exists in its present state in Spain, which is what the caricature is taken from, is a sign of the culture that's going on there, that's accepted at the moment in Spain. And as you said, the racist stuff and the fact that there's still players getting abused on a weekly basis there's a bit of racism in all these stadia in Italy in Serie A at the top level of football, that a Juventus player, that a Milan player, that an Inter player, that that Brescia player like Mario Balotelli can get abused in some way or another. oh my God, there was one I heard last week of some club claimed that they just happened to be making monkey noises at it's just a coincidence.
It was Porto where they were actually cleared by UEFA because they yelled the word monkey into a megaphone right as an opponent was about to
three
take a penalty.
times, I think, into a megaphone.
With the defence being he was saying his own name. Which
it was it's a disgrace. Like that sort of stuff.
But don't worry, FIFA solved racism, so don't worry.
Oh God, and they've solved all the crises in the Middle East as well,
as we've seen with the Athletics.
Oh God, there's a lot of things here. There's a lot of cultural things at play, but at the heart of it, like I can say that like there's cultural acceptance in Portugal, Italy, and Spain of some of this stuff, which gives an out to some of these guys, and you can have that as defence. I don't think it's much of a defence, but it does exist. I was hoping that this could kind of wind down as they put it to bed. Like Pep did give another interview after the match. I know he said some things before the match the weekend, and he said I know it kind of went on a bit and he kind of didn't help his situation, but he did say if anyone was offended by the photo or whatever, the joke as Pep may have put it, that Bernardo has apologised for it. And it's like, I suppose that's something out of it. I know this is still ongoing and it shouldn't have been. I don't know how the FA are going to deal with it, whether they're going to come down heavy. Maybe they should, and maybe that'll be a lesson to all players, managers. And it's not just like you said, to bring it up to the start. It doesn't make, because he's done this thing that is effectively racist. I know no one's really calling him the racist, but he's done a very culturally insensitive thing. He's equated his own teammate as a child with this horrid racist caricature that's being used still, or some variation of it. It's still being used by a brand in Spain. That's bad. That's wrong. Someone needs to make this clear to these players and to these coaches and the clubs that this isn't right. If you did this about anything else, it's not, think about it. If what's something that is morally abhorrent in society now? If for instance, he had mocked someone who had cerebral palsy in the same thing, like a photo. It's horrible to have to bring something like this up, but if he had done that, would Pep be defending him the way he is now?
Well,
I don't think he would. I don't think he would.
Defensible.
But this isn't defensible either. Yes. It's something that's something has to be checked with these guys.
And a part of that comes back to the tribalism of football just being quite toxic as well.
I do think part of it's going to be, the world is against us, and he's trying to create that kind of attitude. But there's another part which is, if you would just let this, put it to bed, as Jeff Shreve said to Pep at the weekend multiple times, and apologise, taking the punishment the FA are going to take, have some cultural sensitivity training or something. I know you can go, the world's gone mad, PC gone mad, we can't say anything these days. But if, as I said, that example I just gave you there, if he had done that, taken a photo of him and a photo of someone clearly in a distressed, disabled state, would you have still said this? Would he have defended him the same way? I don't think he would have.
And then to segue smoothly out
away
of this
from
discussion, John Delaney has resigned as whatever made-up role he called himself
Vice
at
President,
the FAI.
I think he was.
Executive of something or other.
Yeah,
He's
Executive
gone
Vice
anyway.
President in charge of the many things.
Many things. A long 15
years as CEO. As proper CEO. I think he was 1 year as interim.
He was definitely there at 2002 as well.
Yeah, he was in he's been in, I don't know, has he ever done really anything else? So we'll never know, because he's not a member. He's confirmed, he says he's a chartered accountant, but no body has taken ownership of him. In
life, there are love relationships, very loving relationships. In life, there are love-hate relationships. In this instance, though, life gave us a hate-hate relationship. I don't think at any real tangible point did anyone involved with Irish football on the outside really appreciate John Delaney in any sense.
No,
really.
There's moments, obviously, when he booked that train in Slovakia.
Yeah,
he bought everyone booze.
Good PR moments
in Poland in
2012, Gdansk. I think it was.
Yeah, and there's little things like that, but there's also everything else.
Ken Early had a good piece that you retweeted on Twitter today of when he launched the 10-year ticket. I can't remember what they call it. Yeah, Vantage ticket, season ticket holders.
€33,000
for a
10-year
10-year ticket, and he talked about advertising it to the like 33 million.
Oh, there's 80,000.
80,000, yeah, 33 millionaires.
80,000 millionaires. We only need 3,000 because they'll buy 4 or 5 tickets each.
Yeah, and
like situations where they're having events for years afterwards.
There's such arrogance in that as well. Like compared to rugby, because we have to, because they share the Aviva with the
most expensive
team.
tickets to rugby were 12,000, I think.
Yeah, they're
most
significantly
expensive.
cheaper.
Like, and rugby's a sport in Ireland certainly that has a much higher
it's
per income per capita income.
It is almost kind of an elitist sport in Ireland
to an
anyway.
extent, yeah.
But to the way John Delaney ran the FAI for the last 15 years, like how did Ken put it again? I can't quite remember. Of like just a relationship that no one liked or something. He put it really well, but like
because he did terrible things in that time. He siphoned money. He had 3,000.
It was due 10 years of austerity for everyone except him.
Yeah, exactly. Like he had them paying €3,000 a month rent, which at the time was enormous money, especially in a time where they were making people lose, like they were cutting wages of not middle class even of minimum wage staff. They were letting people go, and these aren't
they were letting clubs just go into administration as well. Like there's also
they're letting the league
Cork
suffer.
City, wasn't it?
Multiple clubs. Shamrock Rovers went out of existence. Shelburne went out of existence. Galway
United
went out of existence. Wexford Youths, I think, went out of existence. Like almost no club was left untouched by this. Yet he's up there getting a €400,000 a year salary, which would be enough to keep 4 of those clubs going for several years.
He makes more in a year than the team that wins the FAI or the League of Ireland does.
Multiples more.
Yeah,
teams that are mostly semi-pro, that are run in the community, like that offer. That was the worst thing about it. Coaches were being let go who were working. In most cases, they were losing money on their work that they were doing to coach young kids, to coach girls teams, to coach disabled teams, as we were saying, to support the Paralympics, to support the homeless in the Olympics. And they were all just cut aside. Cleaners were let go. They moved from Marion Square to a fancy new building out wherever they are now, out in the country in Dublin. Like, these are things that they didn't have to do, and they did it to keep up with some kind of persona that John Delaney wanted to project, that he was the man's man, that he was one of the people, yet he was getting paid like a huge amount